Hello, folks. Good morning to you all. So, before I start off, I'd like to get a confirmation if you can hear me and if you guys can see my screen. And if everything is proper, we can start off with the session. So, if you guys could just give me a quick confirmation in the chat window if everything is all right. And in the meanwhile, we'll just wait for other folks to join in. And in that brief space of time, I'd like to inform you folks that we have launched a completely free learning platform called as Great Learning Academy, where we have courses with respect to artificial intelligence, data science, machine learning, and a lot more. So let me actually just open up Great Learning for you guys. I'll just open up the page for Great Learning Academy. So this is the initiative by Great Learning Academy, and as you guys see over here, Virat Kohli is our official brand ambassador. So we conduct all of these live sessions on a regular basis. If you'd want to attend any of these live sessions, you can go ahead and register over here. And as you see, we have all of these courses with respect to different domains. And And once you complete any of these courses, you'll get a course completion certificate, which you can go ahead and add onto your resume or onto your LinkedIn page, which would be a huge value add to you guys. So as you see, we have courses with respect to all of these domains over here, and this is the particular link. So the link would also be put in the chat window by someone from our team over there. And also, if you're someone who would be interested to learn through an app, we also have the Great Learning app. So let's say if you don't have your laptop with you right now, and also since it's much more convenient and easier to learn from a phone or a tablet, so if you'd want to learn through an app, you'll also find the link for Great Learning's app in the chat window. So now that these things are set, if all of those folks who are new to our channel, if you haven't yet subscribed to our channel, I'd like to request you folks to go ahead and hit the subscribe button and also click on the bell icon, as it will encourage us to come up with more such live sessions on a regular basis. So that would be very helpful to us. And I see that we have around 75 people watching right now. So we have around 24 likes out of those 75 people. If we could quickly hit 75 likes, that would also be much appreciated. Because the YouTube algorithm works in such a way that if we have more likes on the stream, then more people will get to know that we are conducting this live session. And folks who are interested to learn C++ can join us for this interesting and insightful session. Great. So now that these things are clear, we will start off by today's topic. And today we will be comprehensively learning about this evergreen language called as C++. So I believe most of you would be in the engineering side of things, or most of you would be doing your BCA or MCA, or some of you might even be from non-coding or non-technical background and would want to learn about this language. So irrespective of whichever stream you're from, I'll try to ensure that you will be able to understand all of the major concepts of C++ today. So let's quickly start off with the C++ syntax. So here you would see that we have all of these different things over here. We will start off by writing this first particular code line over here, which is using namespace std. So what is namespace std? So you can consider this to be a virtual environment or a virtual space in which you are writing your program. So let me give you a real life example over here. Now normally, let's say if you're in your school or your college, you have different classrooms, isn't it? And let's say if you're in a classroom, you will have different sections. You will have section A, section B, section C, and so on. So you can consider section A to be one particular namespace, section B to be another namespace, section C to be another namespace. So section A, you will have one teacher teaching you something. Section B, you will have another teacher teaching you something. And that is what we are doing over here. So we are using this standard namespace. That is what we are doing over here. And in this standard namespace, we are writing our entire code. After that, we have something called as preprocessor directive. Now, preprocessor directive basically means that we will be including certain functions, certain libraries which are important to our program before the compilation or the execution of the program actually starts. So we will write down hash include. So if you see the symbol hash include, that would mean that it is a preprocessor directive. And what are we including over here? We are including a library called as IO stream. So IO stream stands for input output stream, and that is what we'll be including in this particular program. Then we will go ahead and create a main function. Sorry. So as I was saying, we will be creating this main function and everything. हाँ हॉटस्पॉट नहीं नहीं अभी तक नहीं आया so let's just hey folks, sorry for the delay. So there was a power cut at my place and I was trying to connect with my hotspot. So again, just give me a quick confirmation please with respect to the audio and the video. Can I get a quick confirmation from you folks? Okay, that's amazing. So without wasting any more time, we'll quickly head on to the topic for today. So we've talked about using namespace std. So you can consider namespace std to be that particular environment where you'll be writing your entire piece of code. Then we have something called as preprocessor directive. So hash include, when we say hash include, that is known as preprocessor directive. And when we talk about preprocessor directives, with the help of these, we are including something or adding something before the execution or the compilation of the program starts. And what I'm including right now is the IO stream library or the IO stream header. So this IO stream stands for input output stream, and with the help of this, we can include the cout and cin methods into our program. Then we have int main. So whatever the crux of our program, it is written inside the main function. So here we have int main, and inside this we are printing out hello world with the help of this cout. So whenever we use cout, with the help of that, we can display something on our monitor. Now here, a function has a return type. So this int, what you see, is known as return type. And since we have to return an integer type, what we are returning over here is 0. So now that this is clear, let me quickly head back over here. I'll just delete this previous program and let me write the entire piece of code over here. So as I've shown you guys, first I'd have to give the namespace std. So I'll write down using namespace std. Once this is done, I'd have to give in the preprocessor directive. So here I will have hash include iostream, and after this I would have to give in the main function, and inside the body of the main function I would write the crux of the program. And here let's say cout. So whatever I give with the help of cout, that would be displayed on the monitor. So I'll write down this is Sparta, and a line of code you'd have to end it with a semicolon, and that is what I'm giving over here. Then I'll just give in return 0 over here, and I'll click on execute, compile and run. So here, as you see, we have successfully written our first program and we have displayed this particular line. This is Sparta. So we have written our first program over here, guys. And now, once this is done and we've understood what are the basic elements which are there in a C++ program, let's go ahead and learn something else. So we have something known as comments in C++. Now, comments would help us to add some information which is not executed or compiled by the C++ compiler. So let's just say if I'd want to give additional information with respect to my program, and this would be generally the case. Let's say if I'm writing a program which has around 10,000 lines of code or maybe even 1,000,000 lines of code, and now if I would want to return to this program after maybe 6 months, and if I don't add any information over there, then I wouldn't be able to understand the head or tail of the program when I return after 6 months. So here what I do is I add something known as comments, which will help me to understand what does this particular line of code do. So as you see over here, a single line comment is given with the help of 2 forward slashes. A multi-line comment is given like this. We have a forward slash star, then we add the comment, then we have star and a forward slash over here. So here, let's say if I would want to add a comment over here, I'll have 2 forward slashes and I'll write down the additional piece of information over here. This will help me to add a single line comment. So as you see over here, now when I click on execute, so as you see over here, whatever I've written over here, this is just a piece of information which is for the user to understand, and this will not be executed or compiled by the C++ compiler. So as you see over here we have this example where we have this multi-line comment starting off, where we given the name of the program, the author, and we have all of these single line comments over here. Now we'll look at some of the basic concepts of C++. So whenever we talk about any programming language, what we are essentially doing is working with data. And whenever we are working with data, we have to store that data somewhere, isn't it? So if we have to store that data somewhere, C++ provides us these temporary storage places called as variables. Now I call these variables as temporary storage places because once you store a value inside this variable, that value can be changed whenever you would want. So here, as you see, this is how we actually initialize a variable in C++. First, we given the type of the data type of the variable, then we given the name of the variable, and then we assign a value to this. So this is a bit confusing to you folks. Let me give you guys an example. So here, as you see, this is how I am creating a variable. So every variable will have a data type associated with it. So here I have int a is equal to 10. So I am creating a variable called as a, which is of integer type, and in that variable I am storing this value 10. Then I have another variable called as b, and the type of that variable is float, and I'm storing the value 20 inside that. Now once all of this is clear, what I'm doing inside the main function is I am adding the value of 10 and 20, and that will give me a particular result. So here, as you see, I'll remove this, and over here I'll have int a. So I'm creating a variable called as a, and the data type is integer. I'm storing the value 10 inside this. Now if I would want to just print this out, so what I'm going to do is C out of a. Let me hit execute. I'll have compile and run. So you would see that I have successfully created my first variable called as a, and I've stored the value 10 inside this. Now this is integer type. But what if I want to store decimal type values? So if I would want to store decimal type values, I would need to use this data type called as float. So float would stand for floating point numbers or decimal numbers. Now float a, and inside this maybe I will keep the value as 10.15. Then I'll just have C out of a, compile and run. And you would see that this is a decimal type value which I've printed out. Then I have another data type called as character. So I have char of a, and inside this maybe I'll store the value. Let's say I have Sparta over here, or maybe I'll just have S over here. Execute, compile and run. And as you see, I have stored a character value inside this. So these are some basic data types which we can associate with all of the different variables which we have. And now, once we know how to do this, we have looked at Cout till now. So Cout is the standard output stream. So whenever we want to display something out onto the console, we'll be using Cout. But what if we'd want to read something from from the user? So if we would want to read something from the user, we would have to use cin. So here what I'll be doing is, so initially what I had done is I had hard coded the values for integer a and integer b. So now what I'm going to do is I'll be taking the values of integer a and integer b from the user. So initially I'll just declare these two variables int a and int b. Once this is done, I will ask the user to give me the value for a. So I'll write down enter the value for variable a, and whatever value the user will give, I will go ahead and I will store that in this variable called as a. Then I will also ask the user to give me a value for the variable b. So here I'll write down enter the value for variable b and this value I'll be storing in this variable b. Now that this is clear, what I'll do is I will have another variable, I'll declare another variable c, and now that I have the value stored in a and b, I'll just add these two values. So I'll have c is equal to a plus b, and I will return out the result to you folks over here. Execute, compile and run. So as you see over here in the main program, this is the first line of statement, and in the first line of statement I am printing out enter the value for variable a, and that is what I have over here. And when we have cin, the compiler will wait for the user to give an input, and I will give the input of 10. Now once I give this input, then as you see over here, this asks for the next, this is what the compiler shows you, enter the value for variable b, and I will give in the value 20 over here. And when I have 20, you don't have any results. So right now I have this, I am taking the value for a, then I am taking the value for b. Now let me print out the value of c over here. So I'll write down c out, I'll give in space over here or a new line over here, and I will print out the value for c. Now if I go ahead and run this, so enter the value for variable a, it will be 10, enter the value for variable b, it will be 20, and as you see over here, I have taken two inputs from the user, and I've added those two inputs, and then I have printed out the result onto the console. So this is how we can take inputs from the user with the help of cin. So I'll just go to the chat section and see if there are any more questions. So also I'd like to apologize for whatever chaos happened today because of the power cut. So some of you folks are asking me to teach in Hindi. So this particular session is in English, but then again, we have a lot of sessions which are scheduled in Hindi as well. So you can go to Great Learning Academy and check it out over here. Whenever we have a Hindi session, you can register for that particular session. Since our students are extremely diverse, our students are from all parts of India and also across different countries as well. So we try to keep it in all of the languages possible. Krishna is asking, I'm 13 years old, can I learn Python? Absolutely. So irrespective of your age, I'm pretty sure you can start with coding. And also I consider Python to be a very simple language. So if you want to learn the language, you can just go ahead and start learning it. Nothing is actually stopping you. Archit is asking, which is the best book for Java? Right now, I can't really recollect any book on the top of my mind, but we have a lot of Java tutorials on our YouTube channel. You can go through those YouTube videos. That would help you out. Right. So we have looked at these basics. So we have looked at CN, we have looked at Cout, and we've also done this. We have had two variables. We have added them up, and then we have displayed them onto the console. Now we will look at different operators. So operators are basically, as the name stands, we will be able to do different types of operations with the help of these operators. So I will start off by arithmetic operators. And arithmetic operators, let me just write down this comment for you folks over here, arithmetic operators. And these would be the different arithmetic operators which I have: plus, minus, multiplication, sorry, that's division, and then we also have multiplication. And what I'm going to do over here is I'll delete everything that is present over here, and I'll hard code the values inside these two variables over here. Inside variable A, I'll store the value 10. Inside variable B, I'll store the value 20. Now, let's say if I would want to again add these two values. So we have actually done this before. So adding them is pretty simple. So it'll be just C is equal to A plus B, Cout, and I'll have the variable C over here because that is what I'd want to print out. I'd have to give a semicolon over here. So guys, just remember that whenever we have written one line of code, you'd have to end it with a semicolon. That is how the compiler will know that the line ends over there. I'll execute this again, compile and run. Why do we have an error this time? I'd have to declare the variable C again. And C, execute. And this time, as you see, I have added these two values. Now similarly, let's say if I would want to perform subtraction, all I have to do is put in the minus symbol over here. So C will be A minus B. I hit execute, compile and run. And here 10 minus 20. So A minus B is basically 10 minus 20, and I get the value of minus 10 over here. And that is what we are displaying. Similarly, if I would want to multiply these two values, I will have A into B. So it is 10 into 20. I will do compile and run, and we get a value of 200 over here. Now, let's say if I would want to divide the values which are present, so it will be A / B. I hit execute, compile and run. And here I get the value 0. So I get the value 0 because 10 upon 20, which is basically 1 divided by 2, is 0. So the floating point value will be 0.5, but the integer value is 0.5. So 0.5, the integer value is 0, and that is the result which we are getting over there. Now, let's say if I would actually want this to be floating point, so you will see the difference over here. I'll have float A is equal to 10, float B is equal to 20. I'll also change C to be equal to float. Now, if I do compile and run, you would see that the value is equal to 0.5. So this is the difference which you see. So if our variables were integers, then 10 by 20 will give you 0. If our variables are floating point, then 10 by 20 will give you 0.5 over here. So that is the difference between integers and floating point numbers. So these were arithmetic operators. Now let's work with relational operators. I'll write down another comment over here. So it will be relational operators, and relational operators are basically less than symbol, greater than symbol, double equal to, and not equal to. So here, let me just go back to the PPT over here. If I have it, I'll just show it to you folks. So these are the different relational operators which we have over here. Now let me go back to dev C++. So if I would want to find out the relationship between A and B, right? So let's say if I given C out A is greater than B. I'm trying to find out if the value which is present in 10 is greater than the value which is present in 20. Execute, compile and run. I get an error over here again. Why do we get an error? Operator, let me actually change this to integer type. I guess that will be better over here. So int A is equal to 10, int B is equal to 20. Execute, compile and run. Maybe I'll just put them inside parenthesis over here. This should work properly right now. Right. So as you see over here, I have the value 10 in A, 20 in B, and I'm trying to check if A is greater than B, and I get the result 0. So 0 over here would mean that it is false. So when we say false, it basically means that 10 is not greater than 20, and that is why we have the value 0 over here. Let me close this up. Let me also close up this window. Now this time I'd want to check if A is less than B. Again, I'll hit on execute, compile and run. And you would see that I get the result 1 because A is actually less than B. Now I'd want to check if the values which are there in A and B are actually equal. So A double equal to B, execute, compile and run. And here I get 0 because 10 again is not equal to 20. Then we have the not equal to operator. I'll give an exclamation mark, equal to, execute, compile and run. And you would see that I get the value 1 because 10 is obviously not equal to 20 over here. So this is what we are able to understand with respect to these relational operators. So these are the different types of relational operators. And next up, let's see what do we have. So we have these logical operators over here. So logical operators will mostly be working with the AND operator, the OR operator. The AND operator will give you a true result when both of the operands are true. The OR operator will give you a true result when either of the operand is equal to true. So let me go back over here. And normally whenever we are working with logical operators, the values would mostly be Boolean. So Boolean data type, we have only two values. It's either 0 or 1. So I'll have bool A. Inside this, I'll store true over here. Then I'll have bool B. Inside this, I'll store false. Let me actually just check the correct syntax for this. Boolean. So it's true and false. So actually both of them are in small case. Let me keep it to be true. Let me keep it to be false over here. Now I'll have C out. Let's see what would happen when I have A and B. If I go ahead, compile and run. I'd have to give in the semicolon over here. I keep forgetting to give that over here. So compile and run again. So true and false. Again, I'd have to enclose this within parentheses. This is important, guys. So now I'll go ahead, hit on execute. And you would see that I get the result 0 because true and false is equal to false. Then if I maybe change this to B and A, I hit on execute, compile and run. This time again I get a false value because false and true is also false. Now I will have B and B. So this time I have a false result over here because false and false is also false. And the only case where I'll be getting a true result is A and A. Execute, compile and run. And as you see, I have the result 1 over here because true and true is equal to true. This is how the AND operator works. Now let's work with the OR operator. So this is how you given the OR operator, you given these two pipe symbols over there. And you'd have to remember when it comes to the OR operator that you will get a true result when either of the operands is true. So A or A. Obviously, the result is 1 because true or true is equal to true. Then I will change this to A or B. Compile and run. And you would see that again I get a true result because true or false is also equal to true. Then I will change this to false or true. Compile and run. And you would see that again this is equal to true. So the only case where we'll be getting a false result is B or B. And as you see over here, I get 0, which essentially means that this is false. So these were actually the logical operators. So we are done with arithmetic operators, relational operators, and also the logical operators. So till now we've covered all of the basics of C++. Now we'll be working with flow control statements. So in flow control statements, we would have the conditional statements or the looping statements. So the conditional statements or the decision making statements would help you to make a decision on the basis of a condition. Let me give you certain examples over here. So let's say you have an exam coming up and you give a mock test, and your parents tell you that if you score more than 70 marks in that mock test, you will be getting an ice cream. Similarly, on the other hand, if you score less than 70 marks, then in that case you would have to give another mock test. So this is a case of if else. If you score more than 70 marks, then you will get an ice cream. Else you would have to give another mock test. So the same concept of if else can be applied in the programming paradigm as well. This is where your if condition comes in. Now let's see an example of this if else statement. So here I'll delete all of these. I'll add a new comment over here. Let me add the comment as if else. Let me have two variables over here again. Integer A, I'll have the variable 10. I'll have the value 10. Integer B, I'll have the value 20. Now I will have this if condition, and I'll have the body inside this, and the condition what I'm trying to check is A less than B. So what happens is if this condition is evaluated to true, then whatever is present inside the body of this if condition, that will be printed out. A is less than B. So I write down A is less than B over here, execute, compile and run. So as you see, since this condition was evaluated to true, we are able to print out whatever is present inside the body of this if condition. Now, let's say if I change the condition over here, if I change the condition to if A is greater than B. Now this condition is obviously false, isn't it? Because 10 is not greater than 20. So execute, compile and run. And you would see that I do not get anything over here, and that is because this condition has failed. And since this condition has failed, whatever is present inside the body of this if condition will not be executed. So this is where we have the else statement. So if whatever is present inside this condition is not evaluated to true, that is when we will have the else statement. And for the else statement, what I'm going to do is I'll do the same thing. So now since this has evaluated to false, here I will write down if failed, printing else. Why do we have this error over here? Because again, I'd have to give in a semicolon over here. So as you see, since this condition has failed, whatever is present inside this has not been executed, and whatever is present inside the body of else, that is what we have printed out over here. If failed, printing else. And that is how we'll be working with if else statement. So a simple example for you guys about the conditional statements. And now another conditional statement, what we have is the switch case. So here, switch case, let's say if you have multiple conditions to decide upon, you can go through those multiple conditions. So let's say if I given, what we are doing is we have this variable E over here, and inside this variable E, I am storing the value 2. So what I'm going to do is we start off by giving this keyword switch, and inside the parenthesis of the switch command, I'll just pass in the variable. So E is basically 2. And inside the body of switch, I'll have different cases. So here what I'm checking is if the value inside variable E is equal to 1, then I'll do something. Similarly, if the value of the variable E is equal to 2, then I'll do something else. And now this default comes in if this value is not present. So if this value is not present, then do whatever is present inside default, and that, and then we'll break it off. So what I'll do is I'll copy this entire thing from over here. Let me just delete this up. Let me paste it back over here. So now what I'll do is I'll change this variable to A. I'll pass A inside this. I am checking if this value is equal to 1. So if the value is equal to 1, print out A is equal to 1. Now, if this is not the case, then break out of this switch case. Then similarly, if the value is equal to 2, C out, you will be printing A is equal to 2. And whether if it is true, again break out. So whether it is false or whether it is true, you will have to break out. So if it is not 1 or 2, you would have to do something, isn't it? So here you will write down A is not present in switch case, execute, compile and run. So as you see over here, since now in the switch case we are checking multiple conditions, and since we are storing the value of 2 in this variable A, that is what we are printing out over here. So this condition is failed. Since this condition is failed, sorry, since this condition is failed, we will come on to case number 2. And in case number 2, we are printing out A is equal to 2. Now, this has been evaluated to true, and then again we will, since you have this break statement over here, we will come out of the switch case. On the other hand, let's see if none of these values are present. Let's say if I store the value 10 inside A. So case 1 is evaluated to false. Case 2 is also evaluated to false. Then I'll just come back to whatever is present in default. So we come to default if none of the cases are evaluated to true, and we execute whatever is present in the default case. So execute, compile and run. So as you see over here, this particular result, A is not present in switch case because the value of A is equal to 10. So this is what we've got over here. This was about switch case. Now we will quickly head on to loops. So loops are something which would help us to iterate something or repeat something. So there'd be a lot of cases where we'd want to repeat something, isn't it? Now I'll give you a simple example over here. Let's say you have an empty bucket and an empty mug, and you would want to fill up that entire bucket with water with the help of this mug. So what do? First, you'll start off by you'll fill in the water inside the mug. You'll pour that mug of water into the bucket. Then you'll check if the bucket is full or not. If it is not full, again you will pour that mug of water into the bucket. Again you'll check if the bucket is full or not. If it is not full, again you'll do the same thing. You will pour the mug of water into the bucket. Again you will check if it is full or not. So you will keep repeating this task until the bucket is full of water. So what you're doing is you are repeating a task until a condition is met. So this is how looping statements work in the programming world. So when it comes to C++, we'll normally be working with for and while. You also have another loop called as do while. So in this particular session, maybe we'll only look at for and while or just for. I'll just give you some examples of this. This is the syntax of the for loop. So you will start off by giving for. So in this you have three things. First is the initialization of the variable. Then you have the condition checking. Then you have the incrementation of the variable. So initially the value of I is equal to 0. I will be incremented till it is less than n. So n could be any arbitrary value, and we are incrementing the value of I. So let me give you an example of the for loop over here. Again, let me just delete this entire thing from over here. So here what I'll do is I'll start off by giving for. I'll have int. I'll set the value of I to be equal to 0. I'll maybe check if I is less than or equal to 10. and I will do I plus plus, then I'll have the body of for loop, and what I'm doing is I am just printing out I, and after that I will give in a new line over here. Now I will hit execute, compile and run, and let's see what is the result over here. So as you see, we have all of these numbers starting from 0 going on till 10. So what does this actually mean? So what this means is initially the value of I is equal to 0. Then we go ahead and check if 0 is less than or equal to 10. Since this condition is true, we go inside the body of for loop and do whatever is present over here. So we are just printing out the value of I, which is 0. Then we increment the value of I. So now the value of I becomes 1. Now we will check if 1 is less than or equal to 10. So since 1 is less than or equal to 10, this is true. Again, we come inside the body of the for loop, we print out 1. Then we head back, we increment the value of I, now it becomes 2. So is 2 less than or equal to 10? That is again true. We come inside, we print out 2. And this goes on till the value of I is equal to 10. Now here, when we have this condition, is 10 less than or equal to 10? This is evaluated to true. We come inside, we print it out. But after this, when I increment the value of I, 10 plus 1, it becomes 11. And now when I check this particular condition is 11 less than or equal to 10, this is evaluated to false, and that is when I come out of this for loop. So this is how your for loop works. So guys, this is pretty much what we'll be covering in today's session. So we had certain glitches over here where we had lost maybe 10 or 15 minutes. So I had a power cut over here. I couldn't really help it. So whatever we have missed out on the topics, we'll be covering it in the next session. So thank you very much for attending the session, guys, and we'll be meeting in the next live class. Thank you very much and hope you guys are safe.